One of the most difficult things is trying to engage with, even with travellers in NGOs. It's been quite difficult. It's not to engage with them. A lot of them get what I'm saying, you understand it. But like most of us, we're not quite sure what to do with it, even we do know it. And that is around the situation with travellers. For the last 20 odd years, travellers have been psychologically murdered by the state. Systematically, assimilation, policies. And I'll tell you why that's happening. Um, Ireland itself is still colonised. And if people don't know what colonised means, it means when the English came here, they slaughtered just about everyone, almost everyone. And they had wiped their history, their traditions, their cultures, and had brainwashed them into an English speaking, thinking, feeling language. And by erasing that, it left a lot of people in limbo, as they call it, lost. So when we see the settled community, it's not one entire community. I call them into two divisions. There's Irish settled and there's settled Irish. The Irish settled would have came from our old world. Whether people believe that now or accept it later on, or they can continue to even deny that science does not matter. And I'm going to explain why it got so confusing. Again, but the breaking down. If you go back to the famine, there was like nobody left. The only people walking were at that time was children because their parents were dead. So it was very easy to take advantage of them. When we seen later in life, the west of Ireland was still getting slaughtered. The mother and baby homes, the snatching of children and put them into institutions. When we see Irish travellers in 1963 onwards, it was the same medicine. The same medicine that had happened to our ancestors, most of them, by the English. And the reason this was happening is because Dublin, as I mentioned, is still in a colonial mentality. In other words, they're thinking in the same way as the English were thinking. Brainwashed. Some of them weren't brainwashed because some of them already came from England and continued the legacy of their colonialist ancestors. Ireland is a pretty bad state, there's no doubt about that. If you look at its 18.5% depression rate compared to the rest of Europe, and people will say that's the weather. It's a fuck the weather. It's been slaughtered. So we have this psychological divide. In other words, we've got these two communities who think differently, act differently, behave differently. Ours has been slaughtered, so there's no point telling us how we behave, because you've nothing compared to what we've gone through for centuries. So I'm not even trying to justify our wrong actions or ill actions. I'm just saying that we're in an environment not of our own design. So if you were to look at it this way, if you were to use the power of the mind, in other words, we're sharing the English language like everybody else. But at the same time, we know we're not the English people. We know we're not the settled people. And we know we have a different culture and history. And history tells us that we have the original history, we have the original culture, and we are the people that have been here for a very, very long time. Because travellers did not engage or assimilate at the early stages, assimilation means just being brainwashed again and forced into a situation without much choice. But travellers continued and maintained their traveller culture and identity. That has been slaughtered in the last 20 years with traveller organisations. Even traveller reps who call themselves reps that don't represent travellers because nobody elected them. Travellers go and call themselves independent and working independently, but we didn't elect them either. So I don't want to give out too much about the travellers because you got being tricked, you've been bamboozled. The settled people are the people who need neurological support. They themselves are traumatized. They themselves are living in a denial of their own identity. In other words, they're badly confused, and a lot of them are quite fucked up with no disrespect to anyone. We're quite fucked up ourselves, but you can imagine why and understand why. So I would say to travel organizations, stop what you're doing because you're killing us. You're giving us death sentences. Here in the now, in the moment, and a few travellers getting on platforms and certifications, and your families are doing okay out of it, while the rest of your community are being slaughtered. Don't take my word and look at your own stats, your own facts. If you don't believe that, go into the graveyards and you'll see a lot of young travellers dead. Because the NGOs are trying to portray us in a light that we're not from. So go on about minkers or pavies does not matter. No one gives a fuck. You know, we're here now, we're being slaughtered. And you're addressing issues in the symptom or the here and the now, but them symptoms are caused by neurological and traumatizing effects that happened on the island that went unchanged. In other words, in 1922, the Irish settled kept all of the colonial systems, all of the institutions, the acts, the laws, the policies, everything you can think of. and continue to re-educate themselves into a colonized mindset. This is why nobody knows who travellers are. This is why we're being attacked. In the same way we're being attacked over the centuries by the English, we're now being attacked by the so-called Irish. The so-called Irish cannot be Irish inside a colonial system. It's just nuts. Telling us that we're a ethnic minority like the Roma or the Gypsies and we came from a different land. One time I was told to fuck back to my home country. It shows you how backward this country is gone with neurological brainwashing. The whole neurological thing is about shifting your mentality, wiping your history, denying your identity. This has happened through the institutions of homes against Aboriginal people, the Native Americans, and it also happened to Irish travellers in the 1960s by the same colonialists, the same mentality, their own Anglo-Saxon culture of destruction. So my friends, you really, really, really need to slow down. You're giving travellers nothing but death sentence, and that's a fact. Not blaming you, and if you feel personalised by this, and most of you won't even watch this, but if you are feeling personalised this, come out of the damn stupid organisation and ask yourself, who are the settled people? Where did the settled people come from? Their language, their traditions, all of that. When you figured out that it came from the English in the 1600s, and don't confuse settled people with settlers. Settlers have been around a very long time. Settled was a project by the English to wipe the Irish native mentality. So that's the situation we have right here, right now. I'm not talking about something that happened 500 years ago or 1,000 years ago. I'm talking about what's killing us now, and I know where it started. So please get your act together, because this will come to light. And the history then will only make it worse on travellers who stood by or supported organisations knowing that their people were dying left, right and centre. Please get your act together, my friends.